Hold on.
Recording is on.
Oh, there we go.
Did it! Oh my god.
Magic Voice has said it's official.
Jitsi knew we were leaving it for Zoom next month, and it decided to just stab us one final time in the back.
Because this is the last one on Jitsi, right?
Yeah. We started on Jitsi because I was also scared of Zoom, but we also were like, oh, Zoom, Jitsi's better, but I don't think it is, to be honest.
They're
and
about
then we
the
just
same,
finally,
I think.
What?
I think they're about the same.
Probably. We decided to just bite the bullet, though, and pay for a professional accounts, because these events typically go longer than 40 minutes. And now, without further ado, I'm going to read from a script. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual discussion of author Kristina Horton's Far From Perfect. We have Kristina here today to talk about her book with us. We will also have copies in store in the next week or so. Kristina Horton is a licensed professional land surveyor currently working in the public sector. Being a native of the Pacific Northwest, she and her husband, together since high school, settled into their hometown after a decade in Alaska. She rarely passes up a chance to pet a dog or share a laugh. She recently fell in love with traveling to historical sites in Ireland and the UK, with of course a few stops at local pubs along the way for a pint of Guinness. Far From Perfect, released in early 2021, is her debut book. It's the story of her journey living with anxiety and panic disorders since childhood, and the sharing of the wisdom and knowledge she picked up along the way. During this event, we advise that you press the Tile View button at the bottom of your screen to see Kristina full screen. After a reading and discussion, we will be doing an audience Q&A, so get your questions ready. We plan to record the event, as you saw me try to do 3 times. So if you don't want to appear on video, please keep your cameras disabled. You can do this at the bottom of your screen. Also, make sure to enter your name. Please keep your mics muted most of the time. When it is time for questions, you can either raise your hand and we'll call on you to unmute yourself and ask your questions, or if you're shy, we were talking about this, you can just fill out in the little chat box to the left. All right, Kristina, I give the floor to you.
Okay. Well, so I think I'll start with just giving a little bit of a rundown on the book. So an introduction to it. Jonah did a great job, talking about what we put essentially on the back of the book, which is great. But I like to explain to people that the book is actually, there's 2 parts to it. So the first part is my story of living with anxiety and panic from a very young age. And the things that happened in my life that just kept bringing about more anxiety, my confusion about what it was, because for the longest time, I didn't understand what was going on with me. And all of that eventually led to a complete physical, mental, and emotional breakdown at the age of 40. And it chronicles all of that build up to it, what happened at that point, and then my journey the last 10 years of coming out of that and how I've been healing myself. And then part 2 is what I call the toolbox, which is helpful information, things that I've tried, some that worked for me, some that didn't, but might work for somebody else, because we're all different. So, it's never a one size fits all for the human race. So it talks about that it has some statistics in it and information. And the toolbox is not just for people that have issues with anxiety and panic disorders and depression. It's also for people that live with somebody or have a friend that deals with it or just want to know more about it. It gives information in there for those that don't have those issues, but want to better understand those of us that do, which good luck with that, because we're a little hard to figure out. But that's sort of the book in a nutshell. Yeah, 2 parts, my story and a toolbox.
Right on. Would you like to do a few readings for us?
Yeah, so I put together 2 readings in the book. One of them is a little more dramatic. And then The other one is kind of funny. Yeah, you have to use humor, right?
It's my favorite coping mechanism.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so here we go. The time between November 2010 and June 2011 were the most miserable 8 months of my life. Every day I thought I wanted to die. I didn't want to, yet I wanted to. Your body wants to survive. It is programmed to survive. The brain has other ideas sometimes. My brain had hijacked my body. Specifically, it was my subconscious that had hijacked my whole being. Me, the essence of who I am, was not in control. Some trauma-riddled part of me was running the clown show, and I didn't trust my body anymore. I didn't trust that I had any way to come out of this whole fiasco alive. I was my own worst enemy at its most fundamental level. I was literally killing myself with my thoughts, but because it was all manifesting in a physical way, I kept thinking it was a physical issue or cause. I had researched my symptoms online numerous times, and all kinds of horrible diseases would pop up in the results. Often panic attacks would be in the results list too. But it was easier for me to believe that I had a horrible disease because at least people would be accepting of a physical issue. I didn't want to face or admit that I was mentally ill. Eventually, my only safe place was home, and then my bedroom at home. At one point, the agoraphobia was so bad that I struggled to leave my bedroom and go downstairs. It didn't help that going up or down the stairs wiped me out. I barely had enough energy or breath by the time I reached the landing. I would get lightheaded, which just caused more anxiety. I was starting to miss days at work because the thought of leaving the house would be so overwhelming that I would wake up in the middle of the night having an intense panic attack just thinking about getting through the next day. At this point, I started to accept the fact that I was having panic attacks. I just didn't want anyone else to know how bad they were. I let my employer know, but only because I had to tell him why I couldn't make it to work every day. He was kind enough to let me work from home when I could, but my portion of our income took a hard hit. That was just one more thing that I was stressing and feeling guilty about. On top of the daily panic and anxiety, I also started to experience depression. I had never felt it on this level before. People tend to think that depression means you feel sad. For me, that wasn't it at all. Depression made me feel nothing, absolutely nothing. Depression is not an overwhelming feeling of sadness. It's an overwhelming lack of joy. I know it sounds like the same thing, but it's not. You can feel sad and yet still experience joy in something. This was a total lack of caring about anything, even myself. I no longer had interest in things I used to enjoy. I didn't want to be around people, especially if they were laughing or reacting with feeling to anything. I didn't get joy from playing with my dogs, a sunny day, flowers blooming, a good book, a funny show, or time with a friend. It was less painful to cut out the world and people than it was to try to be in it and pretend that I was all right. This lack of feeling and joy scared me more than all the panic and anxiety. It petrified me on a soul deep level. I don't know if I would ever come out of it. When you're so far distanced from what it is that connects you to all other living things in this world, then you no longer see a point in being part of it. Because of my faith in God, I never planned out or seriously considered taking my own life. But I can tell you that the thought of being released from the inner torment that did appeal to me a few times. The heavy burden of carrying around all the anxiety, panic, and depression while desperately trying to hide it eventually broke me, and my greatest fear was realized. I got found out. And that's where I'll end on that part. You'll have to read the book to find out how I got found out.
The cliffhanger.
A cliffhanger. Okay, so after that sad and dramatic part, are we ready for a funny part?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay, so fast forward about a year after my breakdown, I was expressing to my mother some of the stressful things going on at work. She suggested that I try scream therapy. What? She explained that I should do it on my way home, alone in my car, to help release stress. So I was like, so you just start screaming? That seems weird. Apparently it's a thing. I don't know about you, but it's so difficult for me to release emotions verbally, especially in the manner of yelling or screaming. When I was growing up, we didn't yell or scream in our home, and I always felt stupid and embarrassed the few times I've done it. It takes a lot to get me to that point. It's just not a comfortable thing for me to do. But I thought I'd give it a try next time I left work frustrated or upset. So fast forward a few weeks. It's a warm, sunny day, and as I got in my car to leave work and head for home, I opened the panoramic sunroof on my car. It had been a stressful day at work, and I decided to give the scream therapy a try. So here I am driving 25 miles an hour down the main street of the small town I worked in. People are walking by on sidewalks, shopping and enjoying the rare sunny weather. Me, having totally forgotten about the open sunroof, started screaming like a banshee on the prowl in medieval Ireland. I didn't realize at first that I was scaring people until an elderly couple in an adjacent crosswalk stopped, as if startled, and looked around in surprise as I passed through the intersection. It took me a minute to catch on to what had happened. At that point, I discovered laughter therapy, which I recommend highly over scream therapy any day.
That's I like that.
True story.
I like that that image in my mind of screaming.
The banshee in Ireland, yes. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those two bits of your book with us.
You're welcome.
So, what made you want to write a book about your anxiety in the first place?
Well, really, I didn't want to. I mean, who wants to expose these parts of ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as I was moving along in my healing, there's a couple of things that happened to me, and I talk about them in the book, that really ignited my soul in a way that said, you have to help others by sharing your story. And I really felt this was a message from God. And I argued and said, no, you got the wrong person. I do not want to share my story. I don't want people to know. I don't, because my whole life, that's what it had been about, is hide it, hide it, hide it. So, but it just became such an ache for me that I had to do it. I knew I had to. And, something that someone told me once is, really write the book that you wish you would have had at some point. And that made me think back to some of my bleakest moments when I felt so very alone in the anxiety. If I had known someone else was experiencing and feeling the same things I did, it would have helped immensely. Mm-hmm. So that was the whole purpose of me writing this book, is really to help other people that are in my situation or have been in my situation. And the people around us that don't know what to do when we have a panic attack or those sorts of things. So, it wasn't something that I was like, yay, I get to write a book about my life and the anxiety. But once I really was like, okay, this is something I have to do. I have to help others with this. That's why I wrote the book.
So after realizing that you needed to write this book, what were some challenges? So it was probably, I imagine, challenging just realizing that to yourself that you need to write this. But besides that challenge, what other challenges may you have encountered while writing the book?
So probably the biggest thing in the beginning was the organization of it. Mm-hmm. You're privy to so much of your life in your head, but how do you get that out onto paper in a way that speaks to other people and pick the right parts to put in there? So I was like, I don't even know how to organize this. Even 2 years before I really seriously started writing the book, so about 4 years ago, I started to, kind of put down ideas and a loose outline. But I didn't really know the best way to fit everything together, because I'm like, I don't want it to be just my story, but also all the things that I've learned that could help other people. So how do I fit that all together in a way that makes sense? So that was a real challenge for me. And of course, working with an author coach, Sage Adderley Knox, she really helped me nail down that outline and gave me tools of ways to get the ideas organized. So that was helpful.
So that kind of leads into my next question. Can you walk us through the process of starting and completing your book, which included Sage, your writing coach? What was that like?
Yeah, so it was funny because when I first talked to Sage, she said, well, you know, probably the first month or two, you're just going to be putting the ideas together and coming up with an outline. And I'm like, what? That's going to take how long, you know? But she was right. And one of the things I ended up doing is on 3x5 note cards, different colors, I would write down main stories and main ideas or help information that I wanted to put in the book. So I color coded them like, okay, this is a story and it's going to go on orange. And this is helpful in a physical way. So I'm going to put that on yellow. And once I got those, then I laid them out on the floor. And then I just started moving them around in ways that made sense. And so, yeah, the floor in my office at home was littered with these for about 2 weeks. And then I started to put them together and decided, it really helped me decide to do my story in a chronological order and then do the help stuff in a separate section. That's what it did for me, because originally the idea was I was going to fit all of it together, you know, like, hey, this story will match with this help. But laying everything out gave me the opportunity to see it would be better for the reader to separate things out.
That's always really helpful, I guess. People don't, in our, you know, technological age, what am I trying to say? That like element of playing, I guess, with something physical, it really helps the creative process, doesn't it?
It does, being tactile and writing things out too, not just typing them, but writing them for me helps my brain process. So once I got that, then I got the outline together, and then you just sit down and you just write, and you don't worry about punctuation and spelling. And, you know, your first draft is really just going to be crap. It's just going to be a long crap, but it's a way to just let it out. Just don't even hesitate. You just let it all flow out and you'll figure it out later. But you use the outline to keep it somewhat structured. So that's what I did with the first draft, is just, and then, you know, then you go the second draft and you start to really, you know, look at things and your ideas and make sure that's what you want. And I only did 3 drafts on this book. So I did 1, 2, and 3 is where you really tighten everything up and get your spelling and punctuation and everything else together. So, and then of course, then it goes to beta readers and editors, and, you know, you do the book design, book cover design, and the formatter, and there's all these moving parts, you know, towards the end, which is actually kind of fun, a little stressful, but fun. And I used Sage's company, Tell Your Stories Publishing, to help me find the right people to do all of that, because I'm like, I work a full-time job. You know, my husband and I own a business. You know, I have a life. I need to, you know, I've been stuck writing every weekend for a year and a half, over a year and a half. I need to, you know, so that was helpful. You know, definitely if you're writing a book, don't think you're an island among yourself. There's a whole community out there. There is resources like author coaches, and, you know, like her company sells publishing packages and, you know, all those things. Don't think you have to do all of it yourself. You can, but I found it was very beneficial to ask for help and then use it. So that was good. Yeah, so that was my process pretty much from start to finish.
I like how that really speaks to, Orca Books we're cooperating with each other, community building. So I'm glad there are, even in the writers world, there's communities everywhere you look where people help each other. So I love that. My last question would be, what advice would you have for other writers who might be scared of sharing their story?
Just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's I was the queen of negative thinking most of my life, and thinking of the worst case scenario of every possible situation. And thankfully, I don't do that as bad as I used to. So it's easy to think, if I write this book, then people are going to know this, and they're going to do this, and they're going to think of me differently. And yeah, that might be true. But on the flip side, all these wonderful things are going to happen. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. You're going to tell your story, no matter what it is. And someone else is going to be like, I get that. I feel that. I know that. And that helped me. So it's terrifying. You feel so vulnerable and exposed, and people are going to know way more about me than I know about them if they read the book. But you have to sort of elevate and move past that. You have to find a way to do that, because I don't care who you are, your story is important. Someone needs to hear it. And don't do it for yourself, do it for the other person. If that's what helps you move past that. But yeah, I won't downplay. It's really vulnerable and terrifying. But
thank you for sharing your story with us tonight.
Yeah.
So let's see. Now, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, or I guess it's not comments, the chat feature, or raise your hand. Let's see. If
you guys don't ask questions, I'm just going to start talking, and you're going to wish you had to ask questions.
It's going to be fine. So when did this book, when did this come out?
2 weeks.
It was recently, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, March 31st.
All right. What was that like? What was going through your head publication day?
Yeah, that was really interesting. That was a Wednesday, and I actually ended up taking that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off of work. And I almost didn't, just because I have so much to do at my job. But I thought, oh my gosh, are you crazy? You need to take time to, appreciate what has just been accomplished. You need to take a moment and just live in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that time to hand deliver some of the books that people had pre-ordered. And so I was busy doing that, and just sort of taking time to be like, oh my gosh, I wrote a book and it's published, and now it's available and people can read it. And it was great. And also, when I was delivering books, I delivered them to some people I haven't seen in 10, 15 years that supported me by pre-ordering the book. And I'm like, you live locally, I want to hand deliver this to you. And so that was so much fun to just be able to hand it to somebody, to give that to them, and just take that time to do nothing but focus on doing things about the book for 3 days. So that was really great.
That is so sweet that you got to reconnect with people around here.
Yeah.
Because they pre-ordered your book. I have a question about, so you did a pre-order campaign for this, right?
Yeah.
So I happen to know that pre-order campaigns are the most stressful thing in the world. So I'm wondering, how was that for you? Because I know they're pretty anxiety inducing. So what was that
Yeah,
like?
that was not what I expected, for
Mhm.
sure. So, Sage, my other coach, she was like, okay, you have to decide if you want to do this, pre-order crowdsourcing campaign or not. And I'm like, well, I don't even know. What is it? What does it entail, And she's, I was fortunate enough that a friend of mine who is also an author, and she had published, just about the time I was starting my book. So I learned a lot from watching her, and she did a crowdfunding. So I gave her a call, and I'm like, okay, give me the skinny on this. How did you come up with this and this? And so she was really amazing in sharing her experience. So then I just went online and I did a ton of research about what are the do's and don'ts with, putting it together. And they all said, okay, do a video, be really descriptive about your book, be really descriptive about how far you are in the book. Give a lot of information about what people get for, putting money in the pot, so to speak. So, yeah, it was really time consuming just putting it all together. And I probably worked on it for 2 or 3 weeks before it even went live, just to, get it all together, and probably do 16 takes of the video, because every time I get in the middle of it, I'd flub up or I'd like twitch my eye or something. So there was a miracle that ever happened. But yeah, it was really, and then to try to figure out what is the amount that I want to put as my goal, So, just researching all of that. And I went and looked at a lot of other authors' funds I used Indiegogo. So I went on there and looked at a bunch of ones from other authors to get ideas. So yeah, it was just a lot of planning and putting together. And then once it goes live, it was for 3 weeks, and just trying to market that, which feels weird, really uncomfortable. And then I didn't reach my goal, and I had to be okay with that. And really, I was just thankful that the people that did contribute did. I was just really thankful for anything. So yeah, it was stressful. It was, hard to keep on top of it and make sure you were, reminding people about it. So yeah.
Did you find that you had to use any of the the lessons that you wrote about during that stressful time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I pretty much get into my toolbox every day. And in times like those, it was meditation, I like to use an app on my phone that has all kinds of different meditations. So I just do that because sometimes I only have 10 or 15 minutes, and that's what they have on there. Sometimes I'll have longer. Trying to do yoga, because just if I can find a way to release some of that tension out of my body, that helps too. Because I tend to, sort of get the shoulders up into the ears. And so, yeah, it was that, and remembering to breathe. I know that sounds crazy, but when you have anxiety, for me anyway, one of my worst symptoms is everything in my chest and abdomen just tightens up, and I sort of, curl inward, which really restricts your breathing. So then you start taking more shallow breaths. Next thing you know, you're hyperventilating, and then you're panicking. So just remembering to sort of lean back and open all of that up and just take really deep breaths. And that, for me, helps immensely when I find myself right in the middle of the stress and anxiety. Yeah.
It's funny that you mention meditation and meditation apps, because one of our coworkers, Frances, of they've put forth this suggestion that we turn our break room into a meditation room and pay for like some subscription to some meditation app. So.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for just a 10-minute meditation. There really is. It's hard to do it for, especially if you have anxiety, you have a really busy mind. Mm-hmm. You're constantly thinking, and everything is sort of hurried, and it takes quite a bit of effort to slow yourself down, and it feels wrong, to not be running at a high level all the time when that's what you constantly do. So to bring yourself down to what I call sort of this lower, calmer level is really uncomfortable. So it took me a long time to be okay with meditation. But now it's like a mini nap, which I love naps. So yeah.
Is there a certain type of meditating you do?
I do the meditation with breath work. I like that. I also like meditation where I sort of have a mantra or a scripture in my head that I sort of repeat. And then I also know that for people with anxiety, sometimes making a sound relaxes your chest and your throat and all of that you clench. So sometimes just saying, whatever sound is comfortable for you, and if you're in an area where no one's going to hear you, that helps a little bit too. So it just depends on where I'm at and what I'm feeling like. Yeah.
All right. I have a bit of a curveball idea for us because we have time.
Sure.
Do you think you could maybe teach us some, like a really easy, basic meditation technique that we could all use?
Maybe. I don't know how. I've never done that before. That's crazy.
I don't know. Let's try it.
Yeah. So normally, I kind of cheat because a lot of times when I meditate, I like to lay down. Just because I'm lazy, probably, but sitting up and then I want to fall over. But if I'm sitting in a chair, I'll put my feet on the ground because I feel that, and especially if you can take your shoes off, like if you're at home or something, that just sort of grounds you. And then you just relax your hands into your lap. Like they don't have to be, in any form, just whatever is comfortable for you. And then you want to make sure that your back is straight and you sort of relax your shoulders down, and that opens this up. And then a lot of times I just start with some like 3 to 10 really deep belly breaths, like 3 in, 2 out. So you just do a count, and you just count in your head when you do it. So you just go. And I just do that breathing, and I do it nice and slow. So like the count of 3 in, count of 2 out. And I do that 3 to 10 times, whatever I feel I really need. So just sort of doing that helps relax your muscles and bodies, gets oxygen to your brain. It just starts to calm everything down a little bit. Especially, when you have anxiety, you tend to breathe a little bit faster and more shallow. So this, forces you to really use your full lung capacity, your diaphragm. And then once that happens, then you can go back into more of a natural breathing rhythm, in through your nose, out through your mouth, or just in and out through your nose, whatever's comfortable for you. And then I either come up with a mantra to say, or a scripture. So sometimes for me, it's just be still, be still, be still. And I just sort of say that. Now, the hardest part about meditation is the mind tends to wander. When the body isn't active, the mind tends to wander. So the hardest part is just bringing your focus back into either your breathing or your mantra. So some people prefer to just keep focusing on breathing in and breathing out and sort of feeling the breath. But when I focus too much on that, then that almost makes me anxious, just because with anxiety, you focus so much on your body symptoms and what is my body doing? And that feels weird. And, so that's why I find the mantra to be much more helpful. So just to find anything, any little phrase, any little word, just even a word that you're feeling that day, like thankful or grateful or peace or love or whatever. And you just sort of say it again and again. And sometimes, you can use visualization. I've done meditation with that too, where you visualize like the roots of a tree and then the leaves. And, you can use visualization to keep the mind engaged in a way that is helpful. So
I never heard about the mantra part. I know in the past when I've tried to meditate, I've always had that mind wandering thing. So that is good to know about the mantra thing. My feet are firmly planted on the ground. I'm very straight backed.
yeah.
I feel a lot calmer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good way to end the day, right?
It's nice.
Yeah.
All right. Kristina, it has been a pleasure. I feel a lot mellower now because of our end of event activity.
The good news is you don't feel anxious, so that's awesome.
It's really good. All right. So your book will be available at our store pretty soon.
Yeah.
We'll be dropping off some copies in the next couple days.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you. And I just want to thank everyone that came. I, can't see faces, but I really appreciate people coming and supporting the book and like, local bookstores. You guys are the bread and butter for us that are addicted to books. So thank you. Probably just be expecting that when I come in to drop my books off, I'll be leaving with some books.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jonah. It was really nice getting to chat with you. And thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording. It's going to yell